Peace. We are live again. Hold on one second. Let me go turn on my Bluetooth speaker. All right, there we go. There we go. But listen, we are live again. Dynasty Mirror Search for Uhuru. Thank you so much for joining. Once again, thank you so much for joining. Before you guys, as you guys come in, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you share, and also make sure you subscribe. Couple of announcements, and then we're going to bring on our guest, Brother Ebube Okoli. We're going to have an awesome discussion tonight in regards to the Gunna and Young Thug case. Ebube is a lawyer, so we're gonna dive in and get into the weeds and the details in regards to what's going on with the case. If you don't know, Gunna was released, and I'm not a street guy; I'm a civilian. But people are saying he snitched or whatnot. But Ebube is our in-house lawyer, so he'll go into details in regards to what's really going on behind the scenes on the case. But anyways, guys, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you share. Also, make sure you subscribe. Couple of announcements, tours. All right, we are rolling to Sierra Leone in April. And we're also rolling to Senegal in May for the Jazz Festival. All right, so if you're interested in joining us in Africa, in the motherland, if you're interested in traveling with us to Africa, please visit donfo.africa. Again, please visit donfo.africa. Link is in the chat room. It's also on the screen, donfo.africa, not donfo, Africa. All right, so once again, please visit donfo.africa. We will love to have you. We'll love for you guys to join. It will be a blessing to host you on the continent in the motherland. It will be a blessing. Shout out to Yana, who's in the chat room. Yana, thank you so much for joining. Guys, Yana is mods. She's in the chat room, everyone. So shout out to her. Please visit Donfo, DANFO. Again, please visit donfo.africa. Click on travel and then click on Senegal. Once again, guys, we are rolling to Senegal. Again, we are rolling to Senegal for the Jazz Festival. So we would love for you guys to join us in Senegal, which is my favorite country. Don't tell anybody. Senegal is my favorite country overall. All right, so again, come and join us in Senegal. And then also, documentary. If you have not bought the documentary In Search of Uhuru, again, if you have not bought the documentary In Search of Uhuru, please go to searchforuhuru.com. Again, please go to searchforuhuru.com and buy the documentary. Link is on the screen, and link will be in the chat room. Again, please go to searchforuhuru.com and buy the documentary. Without further ado, let's bring on Brother Ebube. Brother Ebube.
There we go.
I'm sorry, Attorney Okoli. I'm so sorry. Let me put some respect on your name.
It's all good, man. It's all love.
I apologize. Thank you so much for joining. Let me stop the screen. There we go. Oh, no. One button. There we go. Perfect.
Works for me.
There we go. Ebube, how are you doing this fine evening?
Ooh, I'm doing well. It's been a busy day for me. Mondays are always pretty busy because I hop right back into the swing of things. But chances are I never stopped working Saturday and Sunday. So Mondays are like a continuation of the week. But it's good because it's been a productive Monday, and it's good to be here, man. It's good to be back here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, let's jump right into it. Well, first of all, introduce yourself, Ebube.
All right. For those who don't know me, my name is Ebube Okoli. I'm a Nigerian-born, American-trained attorney and geopolitical analyst. I'm also the creative director at Up Close and Center, a channel here on YouTube that's dedicated to giving proper and complex geopolitical analysis on the African continent without the bias that you get from the larger media houses. I'm also the senior attorney and president of the Okoli Law Group. Based here in Atlanta, Georgia. We take on serious criminal charges. So if you're ever facing serious criminal charges, we give serious legal representation, and it's pretty good.
All right, so let's jump into it. Young Thug, Gunna, YSL.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get down to it. All
Let's
right.
get down.
But first, before we get too far into it, let's understand the terms that we're using, right? So,
Racketeering. I think racketeering is.
there's a lot of that allegedly.
Go ahead.
And so, what we're going to focus on is we're going to go back in time a little bit to the 1930s. So, what happened in the 1930s is there was a group of men, aka the mob, and they allegedly got together with some lawyers, and they said, how can we structure a criminal enterprise where we shield the decision makers and the shot callers from criminal liability? And allegedly, these lawyers helped them craft these structures whereby the people who had the know-how to maintain a criminal enterprise were shielded from liability, and the only people who risked any little criminal liability were the foot soldiers at the very bottom of the pyramid, who were plenty and expendable, if you will. So they created a system where it was like a chessboard where the pawns were in front, the pawns were highly expendable, but you could never really get to the king, who would be the shot caller of that particular criminal enterprise. And all a criminal enterprise is let's say someone goes out and robs a bank one time. That's a crime. They robbed the bank. Let's say two people get together and conspire to rob a bank, and they maybe buy some masks or something like that, and they take an action towards accomplishing that. Depending on the state you're in, there's slightly different variations of what we would call conspiracy. But those two people, based on the agreement to do something illegal, have now become guilty of a conspiracy. The conspiracy is complete upon the agreement and or an additional step, depending on what state you're in. I'm speaking more generally. And once again, this isn't legal advice. I'm an attorney, but I'm not your attorney. You haven't called the Okoli Law Group and put some money into the game for me to be your attorney. So if you're facing any of these charges or anything like that, you definitely need to contact an attorney in your particular state and proceed from there. This is merely an analysis of a topic that includes legalities. So now back to what I was saying. If you go out and rob a bank, you're committing a crime. If you agree to rob a bank with another person, you're guilty of conspiracy. However, if you and three other people decide that every year you're going to rob 5 banks a year for the next 20 years, what you've created is something called a criminal enterprise. And so what happened is this thing called the mafia, the reason it was so powerful up until very recently is because they essentially created a criminal enterprise. They had a really organized, they essentially looked at the law. Allegedly, they had lawyers come in and they asked them certain questions and they say, how can we structure this thing to where we're always going to be good and our enterprise can continue forever? This happened in the 30s, this intense structuring of what we now call organized crime. So after these families, these groups were structured, they went pretty well. They were able to have free reign because you might see somebody over here breaking somebody's kneecaps. You'll see somebody over here running a prostitution ring. You'll see somebody over here extorting these people, and you'll arrest all of them. But they're all isolated incidents. They're not. Hey, Donis, how's the sound and everything sounding?
You sound good. You sound good.
Perfect.
Is there some feedback on my end or something? Or
no, everything's okay. I just heard an echo. Just wanted to make sure before I really went in.
Let me mute myself.
Cool. All right. And so the 1930s, they organized themselves. After the 1930s, they had free reign and things were going pretty good because the true decision makers, you couldn't really stop them. They sat upon their tower and it was like a giant pyramid, them at the top. And many of these people who were the quote unquote bosses, they had legitimate businesses. They went to church on Sunday, mass on Sunday. They would help old ladies cross the street. They would kiss babies. They owned factories. They owned butcher shops. They owned things. They wore really nice suits. They drove really nice cars. And they had an air of legitimacy. But if you ask anybody in that community who the boss was, everybody knew who it was. So essentially, you create a situation where you have a system and people were on code. And that code essentially coalesced around this thing called omerta, or the code of silence, meaning if you get pinched, you do not reveal the existence of this organization, this criminal enterprise, this thing of ours, La Cosa Nostra. So it was moving like that until I'd say the 60s, where you had someone named Joseph Valachi. He was a very high-ranking member, allegedly, based on the testimony he gave. And you had McClellan and you had Blakely. And one was a senator, the other was trying to put together a way to, all right, during the Valachi hearings, you had this person saying that there are these shadow organizations that are devoted to crime. He basically was the first high-profile person to admit to the existence of the mafia, and this was in the 60s. So even though there was this big, high-profile hearing, nothing really came of it. So because nothing really came of it, they started saying, wait a minute, this person is admitting that there is this criminal entity, there are these criminal enterprises, and the best we have are a bunch of low-level thugs who are basically enforcers, and we haven't scratched the surface. So what Blakey advocated for was something that was promulgated in October 15th, 1970, called the Racketeer Influenced Corrupt Organization Act, aka RICO, RICO. It's an acronym. And in law school, we also hear this rumor that it was also named after this character named Rico in a movie called Little Caesar that came out in the 30s. So, and that's just a rumor. It may or may not be true. But now in the 70s, you now had the tool where you can go after whole organizations. It's essentially a way to stop a system. And all a system is are people who act through thought, speech, or action towards a shared goal. They're essentially in concert with each other, and they have a code of conduct on how they deal with things and respond to the human experience in achieving their goal. So now what happens is that you now had this tool in the 70s. Even though you had this tool, this RICO tool, and I'll explain more about it in a bit later, it wasn't really used. It was new. So Blakely traveled the world giving seminars and speeches to district attorneys, not the world, the country, giving speeches to district attorneys and the like, essentially letting them know, hey, here's this powerful tool. Here's how you can stop systematic or organized crime. And what happened is in around 1981, 1982, the Cleveland crime family, there's a mafia family based out in Cleveland. And the boss was actually taken down using this RICO charge. And so they said, oh, wow, we can actually take down these bosses using this new RICO Act. And so you had Rudolph Giuliani in New York essentially use that act to take down the 5 families in New York. And so, for example, the 5 families went down in a matter of years like dominoes. Because what would happen, and I'm going to explain what exactly a RICO charge does. All right. So now there's a fundamental tenet in U.S. law and in the United States justice system that in order for you to be punished for a crime, you have to have participated in the crime directly or indirectly, right? We don't allow a situation where we say, well, somebody else committed a crime. We know they committed a crime, but we're just going to punish you just because that's what we want to do, right? That's really not allowed in the American justice system. However, with the RICO Act, this was the first time that was allowed. Now, the RICO Act, what it does is it criminalizes association in an organization. So now if you have a criminal enterprise, and I as the United States government, you have to remember that there's federal charges and state charges. The federal government first promulgated the RICO Act, and then states eventually adopted it within the first few years that it was promulgated. So you had a lot of states adapting their own version of RICO. Some included more offenses, some were different. So in regards to RICO, I'm just going to speak generally about the federal level as opposed to going into every state level and the different variations. So I'm speaking about it specifically, but I'm also still speaking about it vaguely. So now what the RICO act does is it criminalizes association in an organization, meaning that if I prove that you guys are a criminal enterprise, yeah, you say you're a record label, yeah, you say you're this and that, but you guys have been acting as a criminal organization. You're essentially a system, a group of people who are engaging in systematic criminal activity. Therefore, anyone within that association is guilty of being within that association, and then they're also co-conspirators of any crimes that might happen within that crime organization. So now let's say you join a gang, and in that gang, there's 30 people. Now, out of the 30 people, 5 of those people are really crazy. They drive around rival neighborhoods and they have automatic weapons and they let those things go out of the window. And sometimes they hit people. Now, you being in their gang, if a RICO charge is brought on that gang, as long as what they did was in furtherance of your criminal enterprise and you in some way benefited, all they have to prove is that, and you're a co-conspirator for whatever anyone else did. And with the RICO Act, they essentially made it where they could bring 50 homicide charges, and there would be 50 life sentences in all of those charges. So you have to think of RICO like a soup, right? So now you take all these people, you surveil them, you watch them, and then you take everything they've done, and you take everything and you put them into this pot. And now this pot has 5 homicide charges, 5 kidnapping charges, 20 intent to distribute charges. And now they say, we've identified you as a member of GS9, as a member of YSL, as a member of the Latin Kings. So now in this thing called RICO, this soup that's in this giant cauldron with all these charges, here's your share of the soup. All these charges are yours too, and we can punish you like that. And so the thing is, typically these RICO charges cast a wide net. So now if you cast a wide net, you're going to get some people in there who are like, wait a minute, I don't want to drink this coffee. I don't want to eat this soup. This is crazy. I just joined this gang because these people were in my neighborhood and these were the kind of people that I kind of knew and it kind of seemed cool, but I don't really want to be in this life. I know the people, there's a certain faction in this gang that are crazy and they do crazy things, but I don't feel that I should be facing and fighting 300 years. And so go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. If I can interject real quick. So I was watching some of the, I guess today they were playing some of the trial, the Young Thug trial. And I guess one of the conspirators, they were trying to use a text, like a Instagram message group that they had. And he didn't respond to anything in the message group, but they were trying to use that as evidence to pin him for whatever, these RICO charges. They're like, hey, well, he's in this message group and he didn't have any interaction in the message group. He never responded or messaged anybody, but they were still trying to use that as evidence.
So the question is, what was he doing in that group, right? Let's say he's my client. The first thing I want to know is, bro, how'd you get in that group, right? Because at the end of the day, to criminalize you, all they got to do is prove that you are associated with that group, right? So now if you're in a WhatsApp with 15 gangsters, like always rolls with like, right? So if there's 5 people walking down the street and 4 of them are one thing, the 5th person is just like them, right? You got one person walking down the street, 5 people walking down the street, 4 of them are hardcore gangbangers, and one of them, you don't know what his status is, but he's hanging with those guys. Safe to say that person is a gangbanger. However, prior to RICO, you couldn't convict him. He'd have to do something himself. However, with RICO, association was enough. And you have to remember that RICO was initially a very powerful tool because it was used for people who were very organized. We haven't seen organization like the mafia. The closest thing we've seen to that type of organization are the Latin Kings. The Latin Kings, they have a very strict structure, a lot of discipline. A lot of rules that people adhere to, and they're very organized. However, in the early 2000s, the U.S. government targeted that organization as well. They labeled them a criminal enterprise. And so if you look at it now, just by demographics, about half the people who are called into these RICO charges are African American, males to be exact. About 25% are Hispanic, males to be exact. So this tool that was used to go after these very sophisticated criminals that were, and part of the problem is that you had a certain community, their best and brightest were going into crime, because at a certain time, if you were really smart, you were really skilled, you were really sharp, coming from certain communities, you would just go into this thing of ours. So you would have some of the brightest and best brains going into trying to figure out how to outsmart the judicial system while committing crimes. So the judicial system said, you know what? They've outsmarted the current laws. Let's make up new, more powerful laws, right? So unfortunately, if you only have one tool and you only have a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. And so some people at today say, well, RICO is unconstitutional because you're essentially criminalizing people merely for their associations. So you can be in a WhatsApp group with some guys who may or may not be discussing criminal things, but for the fact that you know that they're discussing these criminal things, you now have knowledge of it. If the state now comes along and says, wait a minute, you're with them too. You had knowledge of what they were doing. You benefited from it in some way. You're on social media and there's a picture of you and you're at this club and you guys are smoking hookah together. And then there's another picture. You and this person went to Miami together. You know, you're basically being criminalized for association. So it's always interesting when, you know, people openly join gangs and they go on social media or rap and they're showing gang bandanas and paraphernalia and throwing up signs, and it's on social media and publicly noted. It's like, you know, for as much as people talk about vitriol towards snitches, it's like, as a defense attorney, you're killing me over here. I'm trying to help you out. And then I go and then I see the indictment and half the evidence is from your social media page. I have to look at you a certain way, unfortunately, because you just made this harder for me and a lot more expensive for you. You know, so
repeat the last part. A lot more expensive for you.
Exactly. So that's the thing, is that you know, social media is, even WhatsApp, YouTube, even if you're anonymous on YouTube, it takes about maybe 30 to 40 minutes to get your address and your name and everything else. You know, being anonymous on YouTube, for example, is you're still known because you could be found out. Being on Instagram or Facebook and you're doing these things with your image and likeness and it's you that's posting it, those are always mistakes, in my opinion. And I believe that a lot of people today don't understand the severity of releasing certain information, especially if it's criminal. You know, you see some of these guys, they go on DJ Vlad's platform and people get on Vlad as if he's, you know, the one who's putting out all this information. But some of those guys, unfortunately,
a good example, Rollo.
Yeah, you know, you or AR Ab, you know, you go up there and you start talking about serious things and guys you met, and you're not changing the names, you're not moving the dates, you're not speaking vague, you're speaking direct, you're saying names, you're saying dates, you're saying times, and you're putting that out there publicly. What happens is that the DA, it's like you're making it easy for them because all they have to do is just watch the interview, like millions of other people, because you made it publicly available. So now they're just looking to tie you into something, and you just gave them an early Christmas present. So that's what the RICO Act is. Essentially, it's a big cauldron, and it's all the charges from everybody and whatever they define as the criminal organization. And I honestly feel a lot of African American men in particular need to understand this, because in the last 20 years, over 50% of the RICO charges have been on African American men. So it's gotten to a point where it used to be mafiosos going down, but you don't really hear about that anymore. What you hear about is this rapper and his crew were determined to be a gang, and everybody in that gang is now eligible for that soup. So now if they have 10 bodies in there, 10 homicide charges, you know, and like for me personally, I would rather defend a homicide than a RICO charge any day. Any day. I'd rather defend a double murder than a RICO charge any day. In fact, I'd rather defend a triple murder than a RICO charge any day. Because with a RICO charge, all they have to do is prove that you were associated with this group, and then everything that comes with being in that group is now applied to you. So all they need are some social media plugs, maybe you going on the internet or going in your music video and throwing up some hand signs, some gang signs, you putting certain things in your lyrics, and they say, okay, there's association right there. We know, and you have to realize in hip hop, and everybody knows somebody that might be involved in the streets. And, you know, in certain communities, that's only 1 degree of separation. In the average community, it's 2. In very elite communities, it's 2 or 3, depending on how you define white collar crime. But everybody knows somebody that knows somebody, or they're that person themselves, fortunately, unfortunately. So now,
guys, sorry about that. Guys, do me a favor. Hit the like button as you come to the chat room. Please hit the like button. Someone asked, they didn't know if I was still streaming. Listen, I just got back from Senegal last Thursday, so I'm back. Normal routine, normal schedule now. So, guys, do me a favor. Hit the like button as you come to the chat room. If you're not hit the like button, hit the like button. All right, go ahead, Ebube.
All right, if you haven't hit that like button, go ahead and light it up. This is the Dynasty Amir. Just got back in the country. You know, he does it for the people. And, you know, just imagine if you were tasked with doing everything that he's done thus far. You'd realize how hard this man works. You know, that's why I have a great deal of respect for him. So, you know, the least you can do is hit the like button. If you haven't already subscribed, be like the other people. It's a popular channel to subscribe to, so go ahead. This is a case where peer pressure is good. Go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe. Also, to check out Up Close and Center. I'm dropping a new documentary soon. Things have been very busy. I've had a lot of cases, so I haven't been able to finish up the editing on the next documentary I'm dropping. But Dynas, you did ask a question before we pause for that quick commercial break. Could you repeat that question?
I don't remember the question. Hold on. I don't remember the question.
All right. Well, you said what?
I'm 40.
Okay. Well,
I said I'm 40. I don't remember the question.
It's all good. These things happen. All right. I'll get back to what I was discussing. So essentially, the last thing you want to do is give the opposing side, the state, the people, the government evidence against you. So if you are in a gang and you go on the internet and you post all your gang paraphernalia, your bandanas, your hand signs, just know that can be used in court against you. Also, too, a lot of people, they talk about the lyrics being used against you. The thing is this: if you really have people out there doing certain things, because hip hop has always been somewhat braggadocious, somewhat facetious, somewhat hyperbolic in the fact that many of the things stated aren't actually going to be done. People brag about the money that they have, the machismo that they have, the swag that they have. However, we now live in an era where those lyrics can be used against you, as we're going to see in the indictment. Dennis, we have the indictment, correct?
Yeah, I think he emailed it to me, correct? He emailed the indictment.
Can we pull that up?
Right now.
What we're going to do is we're going to transition. I sent you on WhatsApp. Yeah, yes, sir. Sent it to you on WhatsApp.
Let me email it to myself. Go ahead.
Cool. Take your time. All right, but I'll set up the preamble for introducing the indictment. And so for example, whenever you hear like a case, like you hear about the Cosby case or anything, me as an attorney, the first thing I do is I want to look at the indictment. Meaning, if I had to pick up this case and try it tomorrow, The first thing I want to look at is the indictment. Then what's in the indictment will dictate where I go to pick up the police reports to get more detailed information as to what actually happened. So the first thing a lawyer is going to do is he's or she is going to say, let me look at the indictment. Let me see what they're actually alleging. Then you break down the indictment. Then after you break down the indictment, you look at the police reports, because the police reports are more specific, because in the indictment, they may come to certain conclusions based on their particular narrative of how they want to sell this case to a judge and or jury. So you as a defense attorney have to say, okay, let me try to figure out what they're going to do, beat them to the punch, and show them why they're wrong, if they are indeed wrong, because you're not defending the person. You're defending the person's right to a fair trial, meaning that even if you think the person is guilty, that's not what it's about, because guilt is determined by a judge and or a jury, not by you merely reading things on social media or me reading things on social media. It's determined by a jury and judge. So what the best thing to do if you really want to understand a case is you read the indictment, or at least you skim through it to really understand what's being done, what's being said, and what's going on. Now, with a RICO case, you might realize that it's not as all right. Now we have to, I'm going to break down something between the federal and the state. Now, the federal government, they were the first to really use the RICO Act to go after organized crime, because, and you have to realize, organized crime was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. There was big money. Some of these mob bosses were worth 200 million, 300 million or more. So for the fact that we know that maybe Al Capone or this mob boss was worth 300 million, imagine the money that we don't know about that they had. So these were powerful men in America. They were corporations unto themselves. So, Donis, how are we looking with that indictment?
I'm downloading it right now.
Cool. So now when it comes to the federal is the U.S. government bringing charges against you. And honestly, I would hate to get a client with a federal RICO charge, because the federal government can watch you for 10 years. They have unlimited resources. They can tap your phones for a very long time. And you'll be surprised if you don't know that you're being recorded. You would be surprised what you will do and say. And then by the time I get all this evidence against you, I got 10 years worth of tapes. By the time I spend all the hours to review all the tapes alone, because there's hours of tapes, I review all the tapes and I realize, my goodness, this guy's confessed to the crime 17 times in the course of 6 years, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not, right? So now a federal RICO case is very hard to defeat, because the federal government, whenever you hear federal, it means the U.S., America as a country is bringing charges against you. So now anytime you hear, okay, a federal government, federal, those are hard to defeat. But a state case, the state doesn't have as many resources as the federal government. So sometimes when they bring a charge, there might not be as much evidence as there would be had this been a federal case. So now we pulled that up. All right. So now here's the actual indictment. And Dynasty, at about page 6 or 7, I want you to do Control Find and type in Williams, because we're going to focus on, but not right now, though. Not right now. We're going to take a look at the first page.
Okay.
Right. So when you scroll up to the first page, and let's take a look at what we got there. So now the first thing, me as an attorney, the first thing that I noticed, let me make this a little bit bigger so I can read it. My eyes aren't what they used to be. There we go. So now the first thing I see is that, all right, this is an indictment, which means a grand jury. It's not a charge anymore. The grand jury has gone ahead to do what they do. And then I look and I see it's Fulton Superior Court, which lets me know it's not federal court.
Ebube, if I can interject real quick and ask a question. What is the grand jury? What is it? Can you go into detail in regards to what exactly is a grand jury? Because there's a jury when you're on trial, then I hear this grand jury, which is like this secret. We don't know who the hell they are. We just hear the grand jury. What's the grand jury?
It is pretty secret. What happens is this, right? So now let's say you get arrested. A police officer arrests you based on, maybe he saw you shoot somebody. You get arrested. You get charged. So now those are the charges against you. In a state like Georgia, you have 90 days to be indicted, right? If you're going to be held in without bond. I don't want to get too complicated in state law, but so what happens is by the time the government charges you with something, and let's say they lock you up, they have to take all the evidence they have for why they locked you up, and they have to take it to something called they have to impanel a grand jury. Now, they take all the evidence to the grand jury, and they say, we have this evidence that this person robbed the bank, this evidence that this person did this evidence that this person did this, and we want to go ahead and indict them, meaning formally charge them with all these crimes that we believe that they have done, and here's our evidence. So they impanel a grand jury. Every county is different. Every state is different on when they sit grand juries. So they'll impanel a grand jury, which is a collection of people. They'll come together. I won't be there as a defense attorney. It's the other side that's there, the state, and they present their case to a group of citizens. And those citizens either decide, you know what, you have enough evidence to move forward in trial, or you know what, you should drop this case because there's not enough evidence. So that's all a grand jury is. So being that this was indicted, and what we're looking at is an indictment, it means that this has already gone through the grand jury process. So me getting it at this point, I know that, okay, this person's already been indicted. My first thing I'd be thinking would be bond. How do I get this person out of here, right? And there's different bites at the apple that you get in regards to bond. There are bonds for new evidence, bonds for 90 days, bonds just merely for the fact that within the Ayala factors, this person doesn't pose a significant threat to the community, has ties to the community, the yada, 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 won't commit a felony afterwards. But when I just look at this, I see indictment. That's the first thing I see. Then I see the judge's name, Judge Glanville. Then I see, okay, this is Fulton Superior Court, which lets me know it's not federal, which means it's a state charge, a state RICO charge, which means that, it's not a federal case, which in a lot of ways can be a good thing. So then you look at the left side where it says State v. Georgia, and you scroll down and you see everybody in this indictment, right? Everybody that's going to be served this soup. You see Khalif Adams, Martinez Arnold, Durante, Marquavius, DeMonte, Sergio Kitchens, Wooney Lee. And you see all these guys that are going to be served this YSL soup. And then you look over to the right column and go up a little bit, Dynast. In the right column, what you see is conspiracy, armed robbery, aggravated assault, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. And you see that they're listed more than once, because with RICO, every single infraction gets stacked on top of itself. So now it's not like they'll say, oh, you robbed 10 people, so we're going to come at you for robbery. No, you're going to have 10 counts, 10 different robberies to defeat. And then everybody has to share that soup. So now as you scroll down, you see that there are 50-something charges that they're alleging are going into this cauldron. And any one of
here's Gunna right here, Sergio Kitchens.
Yeah. So now he's listed, which means he's eligible for the YSL soup. And see, if you scroll down, Dynast, scroll down, and if you look to the column that doesn't have the names, you'll see all of these charges. Keep going, keep going, keep going. So you have over 50 charges, and these are very serious charges. And so let's say you just came to YSL because you wanted to make music, and now YSL has been determined to be a gang, and now you're facing 10 murder charges that you don't even know anything about. But all they have to prove is that, hey, look, you were in this group. And Adonis, can you click the widen the page to get rid of the bar to the right-hand side of the screen? No, if you go over, there's the arrow.
You get rid of this right here?
Yeah.
Oh, should we be able to just do this right now? Let's see here. Hold on.
Oh, any way you want to do it.
That better?
No, I would say get out of that because it made the page slimmer.
Okay.
And see, there's an arrow on the actual right there. See, there's an arrow right there. Go up, scroll up, scroll up. Okay. And then you see that arrow. No. Over a little bit. There's an arrow. You just click on that. It slides over.
I don't see. Okay. Oh, okay. I got you. Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, my bad.
Yes, sir. You got it, brother. So now what we see on the right-hand column, and let me scroll up a little bit. Those are all of the charges that anyone who's been deemed to be in YSL could potentially be a co-conspirator to. So now imagine you sit in a cell, you've never been in trouble your whole life, you just wanted to make music, and they hit you with 54 charges where if you just look at the time, that's maybe like 1,000 years worth of prison time if they put everything on you. And let's say they maybe only found you with, some marijuana and a firearm. You're thinking the only thing they really caught me with was marijuana and a firearm. I don't know anything about any of these other charges. So now we scroll down to where we start seeing the actual charges. So keep going down to about page maybe 9. And what you're going to do is let's look directly at Young Thug's charges. Let's just look directly at what they're charging him with, because they're charging 28 people. And the reason they're charging 28 people is because they know that out of the 28, there's at least 7 people that'll say, you know what? I'm not really with these guys. And what code, like the thing that brought down the mafia was that they were giving these guys they would give a foot soldier almost 300 years unless he cooperated. And they would charge him with everything he didn't even know about. So, and then they would come to him and say, we have things that we can provide you like witness protection. We can get you out of here, but we need you to give us more information on this criminal enterprise. We want to understand the structure because we have you on something called the RICO and you're facing 500 years and you're 40 years old. It would be better for you to participate with us or cooperate with us. And you might do 2 years and then go into witness protection. So it essentially puts pressure on so many people. That's why you'll have 28 people named in this indictment, and half of them are probably just hangers-on, guys who just came around because they wanted to be in a rap crew. Yeah. So now we look at, all right, let's slow down a little bit. Right, the enterprise. What they're going to allege is that YSL is a criminal enterprise. It's not a record label. But we have to be careful because it's like if over 50% of these type of charges in the last year have been against black males, we have to ask the question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Is it that black males are just predisposed to commit so much more organized crime and other men in other cultures and groups don't participate in organized crime? Or are black men being over-targeted? So it's important for people in this community especially to understand, because a lot of people criticize these charges because they criminalize association. And criminalizing association, it doesn't mean I did anything. I might know this person. Everybody knows a knucklehead or two. A RICO charge essentially criminalized that. And especially if you know what they're doing and they can prove that you benefited or partook or enhanced it in some way, you can be pulled into that charge and you got to now eat that soup. And that soup is made up of 50-something charges that carry, theoretically, all those charges are like 20-year charges at a minimum. Some are 5, some are 20. So if you just calculate all that stuff, that's hundreds of years potentially. Right. So now you're threatening somebody with that who's only been in your crew for 3 months. Do you think he's going to quote unquote stand tall? The only thing he's gotten from you guys is a chain. It's a chain with your logo on it. He's like, this isn't worth 500 years. I'll take this chain off and I'll go to my grandmother's house and figure it out. I'll get a job. So that person, it's designed to put so much pressure on so many people that you're going to have a crack somewhere. Somewhere is going to have a leak. So now we look at, the government wants to cast YSL as a criminal organization as opposed to being purely a record label. So the first thing they start out with is the enterprise. And so they talk about the history. They explicitly say YSL is a street gang started in 2012 on Cleveland Avenue area of the ATL. And they say that, hey, look, YSL is part of the Bloods gang. So they want to tie it into a larger national gang. And their whole aspect is YSL is a gang. Of course, on the defense side, they have a very good defense attorney. I was actually watching him argue in court. Very sharp attorney. The first thing he's going to allege is that this isn't a gang, it's a record label. You guys are using RICO and you've gone too far. And at this point, you're using it in ways it wasn't meant to be used. You're using it against a record label. So we'll go ahead and scroll down. So when they talk about identifiers, they're basically saying, hey, look, these guys, they wear certain clothes, they have certain bandanas, they're on social media. All right, so now here, when we come to acts in furtherance of the conspiracy, type in Control F and type in Williams. Let's skip everybody else's charges because there's so many people, and let's just focus on Young Thug because really, I think that's who the government wants to get. I think deep down inside, even if 10 of these guys, they give them deals, Mr. Williams he's the top dog in their opinion, that if they took him down, they would be happy, even if they lost the other guys. So now, now let's look at this. Defendant Jeffrey Williams, an associate, did commit the felony by receiving stolen property. All right, so now these are the acts that they're actually accusing him of. So now everything that they're alleging he did, there's probably a police report out there to give the true details because all they're giving are conclusory statements, but we can get a good sense of where they're going. So as a defense attorney, you're going to look at it and say, okay, they're saying he received stolen property. So now you make a note of that, and then you look at the police report and figure out, okay, let's make sure that he actually did that because you're not going to accuse my client of doing that if they didn't do it. So now let's go to the next one. Go ahead and click on next. It'll move a little quicker. All right. So now it says an associate. Okay, here they're talking about a video. Oh, I think you went down a little bit too much.
My bad. Hold on, let me.
If you press previous and next, okay, there we go.
No, that's it. Oh, there we go. Here we go. No, that's the same one.
Yeah, click next. Click next again. All right, leave it right there. You can move it down a little bit, but I see what they're saying. Here they're talking about a video released on social media. I believe is how you say it. Red like Elmo, but I never effing giggle. Basically, what they're saying is I'm a F for the cash, so when she's ready, she's getting robbed by Tick. Okay, what they're doing here is, all right, he released a video talking about certain lyrics. They're essentially saying what they better have, if they're going to bring this type of claim, is they better have evidence to show that this actually happened, because an argument can be made that they're criminalizing his lyrics for the sake of criminalizing his lyrics. And the argument can be made that hip hop is an art form like every other art form. And so if it's like criminalizing Martin Scorsese for the works that he does, or going back and digging up the movie Kill Bill and saying, well, we see you portrayed homicides in your movie, therefore we're going to try and pin some real life homicides on you. Now, that's the defense if he actually didn't do any of these things. If he actually did these and then got on a beat and gave a confession in rap form, just because it's over a beat doesn't mean that it's not a confession. So people who talk about, well, you shouldn't be able to use lyrics, right now we exist in an environment where lyrics are used against you. So if you're really actually out there committing crimes, don't make it hard for your defense attorney by getting on the internet on a beat and releasing a confession that people are going to sing along to and love. If Mitch actually caught that body about a week ago, don't get on a track talking about how Mitch caught that body about a week ago. It's not the best thing to do for you or for Mitch. So here we see that they're essentially criminalizing him for his lyrics, which now you're starting to see, wait a minute, these are the charges that they're bringing against him. Now, I want to see the police report on this to understand how they came to the conclusion that he's talking about any realistic crime. I'd like to understand the time frame. Did this happen before or after, and how do we know he's actually talking about a specific person? I'd like to see how they link it. And the thing is, if you can break the linkage, then these are just lyrics, rap lyrics, braggadocious lyrics about things that he'll never do. So, let's go to the next one, the next charge for Mr. Williams. All right. So, see, they're talking about a hand sign. You see, they got something from social media, which lets you know that
My bad.
like you never seen John Gotti. You never saw John Gotti throwing up money that he gained illicitly. If you really want to be a boss and you're modeling yourself after all of those guys, a lot of those guys didn't get on the internet, giving information up to the government. You're in a picture with somebody and you guys are throwing up similar signs. I can now say, if I was the prosecutor, hey, these guys are in a gang together. They're known. This guy commits crimes. This guy commits crimes. They're in contact with each other. They're throwing up gang signs. These guys are organized. There's clearly a structure here, right? So if you give them something where they can prove organized crime, they're going to push that narrative. So getting on the internet throwing up gang signs you're really doing yourself a disservice. It's not cool. Whatever you think you gain by doing that, you actually hurt yourself in the long run, especially if you're involved or around anybody that's actually in that type of life. Because if they want to tie you in, they'll say, look at this person right here. These are sacred heads. Look, if I'm hanging with a bunch of Kappas and I got a cane and I'm twirling it, at the end of the day, if they want to prove who's a Kappa, that picture is pretty damning evidence. So now we see here how, and shout outs to the Kappas, but we see here how social media is, they used to call it being hung by the tongue. We're seeing social media, but we just saw in the previous, lyrics were being used. Now social media is being used. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Let me see photo. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay. Associate did pose for a photo. Associates did rent. Oh, this is one of the more serious ones that Mr. Williams did. Basically, they're saying he rented a car for somebody to do a drive-by with, which if he actually did that and he did that with the intent of saying, I'm going to get this car, do a drive-by with it, at that point, you're basically guilty of that crime. You're going to go down for that. But the opposite of that is he's a very wealthy man. He's been very successful in hip-hop. He does lots of favors for lots of people. If I have brothers like how Allen Iverson or Michael Vick, those guys from Virginia, they were taking care of a lot of family with their money. Jeffrey Williams, a.k.a. Young Thug, may be doing the same thing. He may be taking care of a lot of people. Someone needs a rental. Someone says, hey, I need a rental to drive down to Florida. I got this job opportunity. And he says, no problem. Then they take it and they go do a drive-by with it. He's not criminally liable at that point, maybe negligent entrustment on a tort theory or something like that. But he's not really criminally liable for that murder because that person went off and did the murder by themselves. Unless they can link you in with a RICO or they can prove that you knew and you did it specifically for that purpose. But this is going to be one of the harder charges for Mr. Jeffrey Williams to face. But at the end of the day, it's not an impossible charge to beat. They're basically saying you rented a car for somebody who went and did a murder. Well, I rented a car. I didn't know they were going to do a murder. That's what the defense is going to argue, or what they should argue. But this is one of the more serious charges because, for them to say this, it means they should theoretically have evidence to prove everything that they allege, or at least enough to put on an argument. They don't have to have all the evidence, just enough to put on a quality argument to where they don't look silly. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. All right. Okay. Now, here they're talking about he was linking up with Sex Money Murder, which I believe are based out of New York. He was also engaging. Basically, they're trying to set this up like he's this national figure in the Bloods gang because he's connected to all these different sets all over the country. So if he's connected to all these different sets all over the country, this isn't a music thing anymore. This is a gang thing. And they just happen to make music. That's what the prosecution is going to push. The defense is going to say, like, okay, this guy's a rapper, this guy's a rapper. You saying they're in this grand conspiracy like the mafia, you're making a lot of logical leaps here. So here they're talking about they engage in a conversation that sacrifices must be made, soldiers must fall in order to win, in order for the battle to be won. Now, once again, that's a vague statement about victory. That Go ahead. That can go either way. Like, what does that even mean? That's not that. That's not that aha thing. That isn't you rented a car for this person to do a murder. This is you had a conversation with these guys and they're a gang.
Right.
Okay. Well, what's the next one?
Now let's see here.
Okay. Yes, here they have more social media stuff. He did appear in a video 16 days after the murder of Donovan Thomas, stating that so and lied to their mama, they lied to their kids, yada yada. Okay, more social media stuff. The next one, there was a video released of him with hand signs that resemble the Blood Gang with the caption of "You dig 30 YSL coming soon." Right, you see, it's social media. They're basically saying, "Yeah, you're a blood because you're in a social media video throwing up a hand sign." Let's go to the next one. All right. Now you see that they're posing for a social media thing and they're flashing the YSL hand sign, an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. So now you see how they're literally taking things off your Instagram. If you're flashing at this point in 2022, about to be 2023, if you're flashing gang signs in social media, you're making things hard for yourself and you have nobody to blame because you understand that they're using that against you. You see it right here. They're using that against you. Right. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, the Bloods have a reputation for being a gang. And when you throw up that hand signal, it makes it easier for them to say, oh, okay, you're part of an organized crime unit, and we're going to bring you down as such. And all we have to do is prove your association and you're associated to this group. Let's go to the next charge. All right. Terroristic threats. Right. That's like saying I'm going to hurt you. Yeah, he said I'll shoot you in the face. Okay, terroristic threats. He threatened somebody. Right. You keep going. Let's keep going. All right. Did commit the terroristic threats. Okay, keep going. All right. He released on social media.
Hold on. So here we go.
So you see he released on social media slime, sugar, honey, iced tea, where lyrics state, hey, this is slime stuff. Hey, YSL stuff. Hey, killing 12 stuff. Hey, F a jail stuff. Hey, cooking white brick. I'm the new yada, yada, yada. Once again, these are just lyrics. He's painting a scene. He's no more a gangster than Martin Scorsese is. He's merely reporting on things that happen in his neighborhood, and he's just being very descriptive because he's an artist, right? As a defense attorney, that's the type of things I'd be putting out there because we see, again, this is lyrics in social media. But at the same time, it lets you know the environment that you're in. If you're dumb enough to be going on social media talking about your crimes and your affiliations, well, you're dumb enough to potentially end up loving a jail cell and having that. Yeah, let's go to the next one. Okay, here's where we have Sergio Kitchens. And the thing is, you have to realize,
AKA Gunna.
Yeah, and shout outs to Sergio. A lot of people are saying he snitched. We don't know what he did. We don't know if he snitched until closer to trial when they say, here all the. We do know that there are people who are cooperating within, allegedly.
Of course.
Allegedly, there are people cooperating within the 27. Allegedly. We don't know if Gunner cooperated, and we shouldn't say that for sure because that may put a target on this man's back, and he might not be guilty of what you allege. So it'd be good for everybody to just stop that narrative until there's proof, because we'll know when trial hits, a week or two before trial, we're going to know all of the people who gave statements, and we're going to be able to see and read their statements and know, okay, this is what this person said, this is what they didn't say. Now, in the pleading with the court proceeding, in order to get out, sometimes you have to kind of say, all right, well, yeah, this is this. And I know what the state wanted. They wanted him to say YSL is a gang because what they're hoping and maybe to make an argument to get over the hearsay and bring that in against other people to say, well, maybe this was an admission against penal interest and they're together, they're one group, therefore this isn't hearsay, it should come in. Of course, the other side is going to say this is clearly from someone who took a deal, the bias is there, lack of credibility is there. So there's always arguments, and that's the only thing, that Gunna left was the fact that he gave him something to potentially argue with, but lawyers argue everything, so that doesn't matter. There's no evidence yet that he did anything other than say, you know what, I've been in here for a year, let me just get out because clearly I'm not the person that you want. So now here we have Gunna and Thug. They received stolen property, right? Let's go to the next one. So far, Gunna's crimes aren't that bad. Received stolen property, and somebody in a car behind you had drugs. That's really all they charged him with. Maybe one or two other things, but nothing really. So now you see that, distribute methamphetamine because I believe they were in a 2-car caravan. The car behind them had a bunch of drugs in it. So what they did is they said, well, they're in your gang. You guys are all in a gang. They were in a car behind you. They had drugs, so you guys had drugs. Tenuous, but, within the context of RICO, that works. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay. Oh, yeah, this is still theft of stolen property. Yeah, there we go. Methamphetamine, marijuana, hydrocodone. He had some lean. Okay, they're saying that, look, you're part of a gang. You're part of a gang, street gang activity. And you have to remember that there might be similar charges because each of these is based on a separate occurrence. So with RICO, every single occurrence of gang activity is a new and separate charge. And they can stack these up. They can theoretically have 100 charges of just gang activity. And maybe each of those come with 7 years. That's 700 years, which is crazy if you just think about the cauldron and the soup that you got to eat if they determine that you're a part of YSL. And YSL is indeed, if they determine it to be a criminal organization. But let's go to the next ones. All right. Okay. More social media. He released a song called Original Slime Stuff, and he had hand signs and lyrics talking about murder, gang, S, YSL until we're dead and pale. Right? Like, okay, this is more lyrics, but unless they have a police report that shows why this is really relevant and this is really linking him to some sort of crime or something like that, it's just lyrics. But let's continue. Let's go ahead and click that next. All right, here they're saying that he released a video saying
they're on. Go ahead.
Yeah, you see here they're talking about I didn't have anything to do with that body, but I did have something to do with that. I never caught a body, but I had something to do with that body. Meaning that I didn't kill that person, but I had something to do with killing that person. Now you're gonna bring that in, but who's that person? Who is this person that you're now trying to bring? You know how many rappers talk about murdering people in their lyrics? Right? This is just another one of those lyrics. This is in line with basic hip hop. Unless they have something else to say, well, let's say I'm saying I'm driving down Peachtree. I make a left on Fall Road. I go by the fish market. And I shoot this guy in a red shirt, and I drive away. Right. I head further down Peachtree and make a left on Piedmont on September 17th at 4:30 p.m. And let's say there's really a murder at that point. Well, yeah, that was stupid. You confessed to that. But if it's just a generic, I'm the king of the streets, and there's this whole mafioso image, well, then that's just the image. He didn't actually do anything. But let's continue. And you're starting to see that these charges are more so social media based, lyrics based. The only real thing that we saw with some actual gravity was you rented a car for somebody who murdered somebody. But at the same time, I just rented a car. I really want to see the police reports on all this stuff. That'd be the next thing as a defense attorney I'd go to, is to say, all right, let me get all these police reports together. Because they'll tell me exactly why they're bringing what they're bringing, and I can see, does this really stand up? Is this really what they're saying? Because Right now, it seems like a lot of social media and a lot of lyrics. But let's keep going. Let's keep going. More social media. Yeah, see, there was a stop, and there were two cars that were stopped, and the car behind Gunner, and there was some drugs in that car. It's like, all right, that was another car. Let's keep going.
Right.
There was some drugs and some guns in that car. How is that linked to my client? If any of these people were my
Right,
client,
but it's obvious that they're definitely targeting. They're definitely targeting uh, Young Thug. Like he's on damn near every
yeah,
charge.
yeah, they became fans of his album for this particular indictment. They know his lyrics better than me. They probably know his lyrics better than him. Let's
Right.
keep going. Yep. All right. So now he released a video on social media called Bad Boy, where he raps about shooting at someone's mom. Now, this is the one they try to tie into like a home shooting. I think YFN, one of these guys, allegedly his house got shot up. They try to tie that into YSL. This might be a little bit more serious because he's talking about I shot at his mommy. Now he no longer mentioned me. They're trying to say that this is YFN Lucci and that, allegedly, someone from YSL shot at the house. But once again, these are just vague lyrics. We don't know whose mother's house got shot up. And so many rappers have rapped about shooting up their, perceived enemies' houses up, or your fam, destiny lays in my hand. I'm at your mama crib waiting, duct taping your fam, destiny lays in my hands. Shout out to Notorious B.I.G. He talked about having a whole home invasion. Allegedly, he was talking about Nas. But he talked about having a whole home invasion, duct taping people's families. He didn't end up in a RICO charge because we knew that was hyperbolic. He wasn't going to do that. He was just trying to be as disrespectful as he could. But let's go to the next one.
Here we go.
All right. All right. Posted on social media, dissing YFN Lucci. You see how they're basically saying, well, you had a feud with this guy on social media. This guy got stabbed in prison. So, yeah, we're going to tie you to that somehow. Now, I'd like to see the evidence that they have tying Mr. Williams to whatever problems that occurred to Mr. YFN Lucci. You'd have to show the connection. He just simply stated something that, in the rap game, he feels he's superior to his rap rivals. Does that mean he went after them in the streets? We don't know for sure. He might have, but you never know. That's what the trial is for. But let's go to the next one. All right. Once again, it's a video. And they're talking about lyrics. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Unless they can substantiate these lyrics with more than just this person said this in his lyrics, it creates a difficult situation. All right. Did engage in a conversation where Mr. Huey was discussing vehicle. Okay, here's an interesting one. This probably means that they had him wiretapped, or somebody was tapped, or there was an informant in his circle. Because how did they know about this conversation? Right? So once again, this is why as an attorney, the first thing I'm thinking is, yeah, I see the indictment, but I need to see the evidence that you guys rely upon to come to these conclusions, because these are pretty weighty conclusions. Now, the evidence might be faulty. You can always make a conclusion about everything. You can say, well, I'm the best ever, right? But okay, what evidence are you relying upon to come to the conclusion that you're the best ever? You might not be, because I might look at the evidence and think the total opposite. But let's go to the next one. Let's keep going. Keep going.
Oh, here we go. All right, we're here.
All right. Once again, it's another conversation about how YSL is ruling the world, allegedly. But let's go to the next one. All right, now they have him here saying he released the song, hop out and shoot, roll up on the gang, you want to be slime, go catch a body. Me and Lil Bro, we used to steal from the stove. I mean, once again, these are just lyrics. If they don't have anything concrete to tie this man to any real gang activity or real crimes, these are generic lyrics that could almost be assigned to any rapper. But yeah, let's go ahead and go to the next one. Hey, Don, let's just go ahead and go to the next one. There we go. All right. Appeared in a song, Slatty, with lyrics. I killed his man in front of his mama. I like F, Lil Bro, sister and cousin. I shoot out. I killed them, not leaving a trace. I had to break into the safe. Yeah, I didn't leave him a trace. Dissect your body like science class. And gangsters cause you to get a body, Lil N, magazine clips, so you might get your issue. You think the gangster because you got a pistol. All right. You know, once again, if I'm the defense attorney on this, I'm looking at this like, you got to have more evidence against my client outside of his rap lyrics. He's a gangster rapper. Moreover, we don't know that he actually lives any of these things that he raps. You know, so there's a lot of charges, but they have to be based on something for you to now criminalize these. But let's keep going. Now, and it doesn't mean that they don't have everything that they're alleging. Once again, a video on social media titled Ski with lyrics. And now you scroll down. But let's go ahead and keep going. Well, here they're talking about Duke rolling 60s. You know, he mentioned some gangs, so of course they're going to try and tie him in. Once again, here, an associate did engage in a conversation where he asked, y'all ain't beat him up or shot him up yet? Y'all dudes getting soft. All right, you know, who are these people? You know, yeah, there's a lot of people named there. Who knows if any of these people are actually telling, because it says a conversation. How did they know that this conversation occurred? Was it being recorded? Was it over the phone? Was it in person? Was somebody wearing a wire? You know, these are the things I would like to know, because at that point I could properly understand how they came to the conclusion that, let's say Mr. Williams is my client, how he was somehow pulled into this conversation and what it was actually about. But yeah, let's go to the next one. Once again, this is pictures of somebody throwing up gang signs. Let's keep going. Well, yeah, this was a video call in prison. They knew they were being recorded, which was quite foolish. Anytime you make a call in prison, just know that you're being recorded. You know, your lawyer is going to get a log of all your calls. They're going to accuse you of stuff and say you admitted things in your calls. So be careful. If you're not talking to your lawyer, whenever you're talking to your lawyer, they can't use that against you. So it's your lawyer. If you're talking to me, you're my client. You can say what you want to me. You can talk to me frankly. But that's about it. Don't talk on the phones. Don't get on the phones threatening people. Once again, pose for a video on social media talking about lockdown to jet slat biz. You know, slatty is a gang term. Therefore, that was another overt act and further into the conspiracy. See, now it's still more social media lyrics. Let's keep going. The only thing that they need to hope is that they weren't actually doing the crimes that these people are alleging, because that would create another situation. All right, you know I'm ready to handle business and go sit down if I got to about any one of y'all on my mama. Okay. Associates were communicating. It says defendants Marquavius Huey and associates of YSL. Who are these associates? Are they people who are cooperating? Who are they? Who are these people? That's something I'd like to dig into more, but let's keep going. And remember, they've been on Mr. Williams since, I believe, 2013. Okay, it's saying he did pose for a photo with YSL on his chain and throwing up the blood gang sign. Okay, all right. Like, unless there's more evidence, in my opinion, this isn't enough. Unless there's more evidence to show a deeper connection to the Bloods gang, this is just him, with a chain on, with a YSL chain on, right? But let's keep going. A YSL pendant, a bracelet with the word slime on it, and a red letter B tattoo on his chest. Okay. Once again, it's all circumstantial. Unless they have something further, more evidence to really tie him in and say, this is why all of those things are relevant. But let's keep going. The main thing I really saw here was that him renting a car for somebody to go do a murder, because that is pretty weighty. Okay, right. And also too, here, the conspiracy to commit murder. Allegedly, he gave permission for somebody to make a second murder attempt on Mr. Rashane Bennett, aka YFN Lucci. And so they're saying that while Mr. Bennett is incarcerated at Fulton County, the jail down there on Rice Street, that Young Thug and Christian Eppinger and Antonio Sumlin and other associates of YSL, we don't know who they are, so that'd be what I would want to know. They allegedly tried to murder this guy in jail. Now, that's a serious charge. That's not social media. That's not him on the internet. This is a weighty charge. But let's keep going. Okay, he released a photo on social media called Slat Business, YSL for Life, and overt furtherance of the conspiracy. Once again, these, Sergio Kitchen, yeah, they were on the internet talking about Slat. Now, okay, there we go. So, keep going. Keep going. Street gang activity.
No, so I think we're back at the.
So now we're back at the top. So now we've gone through the indictment from the top to the bottom. So if you didn't understand before, now you understand now what RICO is, how it's being used, how people are having problems with how it's being used, and how it's being used in this particular instance, and the potential evidence that they have against Mr. Young Thug. And you see that there's maybe 2 or 3 issues allegedly ordering the hidden jail, getting the rental car for somebody to do a murder in, and maybe some other shootings here and there. But for the most part, it was just merely, you're in this situation, you're in this gang, there's a chain you're wearing, there's a hand sign you're throwing up. But the other thing that's troubling are these conversations. How did they get access to these conversations? And you have to remember the nature of a RICO. You bring this many people into a litigation, you're going to have 10 people willing to cooperate because they don't want to eat that stew. That stew is something serious. Some serious coffee to drink.
Guys, do me a favor, hit the like button. Also, too, we have to give a special shout out to our sponsors. And one of them is brother attorney. We're going to say brother attorney, Ebube Okoli. So let's pay the bills real quick, guys. We'll be back in about 30 seconds.
At the Okoli Law Group, we specialize in producing justice. If you or a loved one in the Atlanta metro area is facing serious criminal charges, then you need serious legal representation.
The Okoli Law Group is here for you. The Okoli Law Group is here for us.
The Okoli Law Group, serious legal representation.
Hey, you guys, it is your girl Alexis Fowler coming to you with a special sale of 40% off all of my services when you use promo code VIP40 at alexisfowler.com. As a brand designer and consultant, I provide services like digital art, logo designs, packaging designs, web designs, social media flyers, and much more. If you're an entrepreneur with a business or a startup company and you need help with branding and graphic design, make sure you take advantage of this opportunity with 40% off using promo code VIP40 to get 40% off on all my services at alexisfowler.com.
There we go. Sorry about that. All right, Ebube, we'll go ahead and close out. Anything else you'd like to share in closing?
No.
Okay,
if you haven't already liked.
So let me ask you this. So how do you think, again, you got your crystal ball, put on your lawyer hat. Oh, no, actually put on your judge hat. Your judge, Grant Glanville, I think his name is.
Glanville. Judge Glanville. Very solid brother.
Right.
I believe he's a Q.
Very solid. I'm not sure, but very solid. Very solid. How do you think this is going to play out? Gunna, he's free now. Other people are going to start telling. How do you think this is going to play out?
Well, once again, nobody has alleged that Gunna has told anything, because if you look at the crimes that Gunna was charged with, his crimes weren't that serious. They were very non-serious. It was basically with Gunna, he was, I believe he was in a car, and there was a car behind him. The car behind him had maybe some weapons and some drugs in it. But there was like other people around, like 6 or 7 other people, I believe. And they just kind of zeroed in on him. And once again, remember that their whole thing is that you guys aren't a record label. You're a criminal organization. And you have to remember, too, that the line between the streets and the some of these hip-hop labels is very thin, because a lot of these rappers come directly out of the streets. So now they come out of the streets and they may make a 360 with their life and say, you know what, for me, I'm all about the hip-hop. I'm not about, selling drugs. Like E40 said, there's more money in hip-hop and sponsorships and commercials than there are ever being on the block. And that's a true statement. And once you factor in jail time, having to pay people like me thousands of dollars every time I show up with you in court, you got a lot of expenses living that street life. People still live it, but it is expensive. And at the end of the day, you might only break even when you consider that you might end up doing 20 years of making no money, and you might have been good for 7 years, making good money, selling drugs or whatever. And then you do a 20-year bid. So now out of the 27 years, if you factor out how much you made, you basically just made minimum wage. So, they say crime doesn't pay, but, everybody has their own prerogative. So now the way I see it going, Young Thug has a very good attorney. I'm not his attorney. Might have helped him. But he has a competent attorney. He has a very fair judge, very competent judge. But there's also a very zealous district attorney that basically wants to get this conviction. Very competent district attorney, and who knows what type of investigation they did to come up with the charges they came up with. Because me just reading it and saying, well, this is a social media post. Well, they may have evidence to show that there was a whole crime done before the social media post, and the social media post was merely bragging about an incident. So there's that, and of course any skilled DA is going to lean upon that to put forth their narrative of the case. So in regards to litigation, it's really all about the evidence, one, and then it's about the narratives put behind the evidence. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets convicted based on the testimony of somebody within the 27 who's going to say, you know what? And you have to remember, the reason John Gotti went down is because Sammy the Bull Gravano, everybody was flipping in that organization. The mafia got to the point where people glorify the mafia, but they don't realize how the mafia went out. The government gave all these people 50, 60, 70-year charges. And it's like, look, I'm an enforcer on the street. I'm not getting any real money. I'm not the John Gotti. I'm not the Castellanos. I'm some guy on the street who's maybe making $1,000 a week being in this thing called the mafia. And now you want me to adhere to the code of omerta and go to jail for 70 years so someone else can snatch up my wife, and my children will just be wayward because they won't have a father. There's nobody to guide them. I'm in prison. And who's taking care of my daughter and my son? You know, I can't really trust these guys to do that. And the government is saying, well, we'll put you in witness protection. We'll take care of you. We'll take care of you. Don't worry. You know, we got money invested in that. Just go ahead and give us more information about who the shot callers were. Go ahead and give us more information about this structure. And rather than facing these 74 years, because remember, the way RICO comes is all of those charges can be stacked on. They're not running concurrent in many instances. Every state is a little different, but they're stacking them on top of you. You saw, like, and this is why it's good to look at the indictment, right? Anybody who talks about a case and hasn't looked at the indictment, it's like, I'd rather not listen to you because you're just talking what your opinion. You're not looking at what they're actually saying. Here's the issue. You're not analyzing the issues. Even the indictment is limited because as an attorney, yeah, I'm going to read the indictment so I understand where you're going. But I need police reports. That's the next thing I'm grabbing. Let me get all the police reports. And, you know, it might take me a week to get through all that stuff. Of course, the client is, you know, financially responsible for all that work I'm putting in. But at the end of the day, it behooves them, you know, to find a good defense attorney who's going to take these steps and take care of you. Because let's say you read those police reports and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't even connected. These people are reaching for straws. That's why they're going to social media, not because they have something concrete. Then they go to social media. If they had something concrete and went to social media, that'd be a different ballgame. So the thing is this, we're not really going to know where this case is going to go until closer to trial, which will be next year when the state says, here's all the evidence we have, not just the indictment, because the indictment is conclusory statements, which we don't know how they came to these conclusions. We just know that they came to these conclusions. So the thing is, we're not going to know who snitched, if there are any snitches. However, remember, RICO is designed to make mobsters snitch because they put so many charges on so many people, and some people just say, you know what, it's better for me to just, you know, snitch because I can't trust this next man to be quiet. And he might get 3 years while you get 300. That's the reality of a RICO charge. So you might just say, you know what? The only thing I got out of YSL was a chain. They gave me a chain, you know, and, you know, a couple dollars here and there. This isn't enough to risk a life sentence for these people. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, that's how the average person is going to think. So we're not going to know really much more until more information comes out and discovery comes out and they start trial. Then we can say, okay, here's the actual evidence that they had to come to the conclusions that they did in the indictment.
Exactly. Hey, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Oh, Ebube, how can people reach out to you? How can they contact you, and where can they find you?
Yes, sir. All right. If you find yourself in a situation where you need serious legal defense, what you're going to do is you're going to go to okolilaw.com or just go to Google and type in the Okoli Law Group. Go ahead and give me a call, or my secretary should pick one of us. And then from there, we'll be able to go ahead and proceed based on your unique needs. And also, too, click the like button, click the subscribe button here. And also, too, go to my channel where I release documentaries up close and center, and make sure to click subscribe because new content is coming.
Yes, sir. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Like, share, subscribe. Until next time, family, Dynasty Mirror Search for Uhuru. Peace.